welcome. Welcome to I Quit My Job. I'm Slowly Plus One. This episode's amazing. We have no other than Kendra Francis with us, fashion icon in the Six or in Toronto, however you want to call it, or T-Dot. If you do not know fashion or you do know fashion, you have to know Kendra Francis. She's an icon in the city, been doing her thing, and well-established fashion designer. And so now she's kind of moved on, and this is all about I Quit My Job. She's kind of moved on in her career, different careers in the fashion industry, and she will tell you all about that. Without any further delays, I'm going to introduce you to Kendra Francis. And hey, thank you so much for showing up. I don't know if I should hug you on screen, but this is so cool. Thank you so much for showing up, and thank you for being a part of what we're doing here. I'm going to pass this mic over to you, and I want you to kind of like tell us what you're up to, who you are, and what you're currently doing now.
Fashion has been, my life since I was 13. Mm-hmm. I set on that journey. Now I'm just living in the life of doing everything that I want to do creatively. So it sounds like I have a lot going on. It's just that my brain's always creating and coming up with things. So, I do interior design.
Wow.
I have a children's line, which I've had since 2015, a baby line, 0 to 24 months, called Petit Genou. And
Petit Genou.
Petit, you got it.
I got it.
Got it.
I'm not French major. What are you talking about?
Developing a skincare product, and mothering and all that great stuff.
So Kendra Francis is a brand now, like with mother, all the stuff that has to do with the children line, your fashion and everything all in one. So you're now a brand.
I mean, it's always evolving, right? And if you're creative, you're always creating.
Right. And
you're only limited by if you feel like you can't do it. And so, I've gone through peaks and valleys where it's like, different things where you feel you can't do it, imposter syndrome, all those different things along the journey.
Do you get that?
But yeah, for
really?
Sure.
Wow.
For sure. But as long as, it's in my blood, so that's all I can do. I'm not built for 9 to 5. I'm not built for that structure. And I've tried it and I've been in and out of that over the years, but I'm not built for that.
That's just a good segue into what we're going to say next, because this is all about I Quit My Job, as you know. It's all about those ordinary stories that lead to extraordinary inspirations, and I believe your story would be very inspirational. As you said, 9 to 5 was not your thing. Yeah. So quitting your job was like changing careers, transforming. And what's so cool about it, you have one industry that you worked in, and then you have multiple layers of that industry. Yeah. So explain like your little journey of like I quit my job to get you up to the different careers that you've been doing.
Well, I've always I decided and fell in love with fashion very young. My family, the history of my family is that my grandfather on my father's side was a tailor in his community in Dominica. And so he did all the uniforms for, the fire department, the police department. And a lot of my dad's friends who I know, they all had like part-time jobs. So everyone knew how to sew. So my dad knew how to sew. My uncle knew how to sew. My mother also was a very crafty, artistic person. She was a teacher, but she was always doing ceramics, flower arranging, cake decorating, sewing. So she was very artistic. She could draw beautifully. But for her, in our parents' generation, that wasn't a job.
Right. You're going to go broke.
So she was a teacher. So she was exactly. And they didn't want that for me either. But at 13, I decided that's what I want to do. My cousin sewed. I would make my own clothes. And I pursued going into fashion design at Ryerson. And they didn't want me to do that. I had to sneak to go to that interview. I had to sneak my application. I had to do my portfolio in secret, drive there in secret in the morning to do the whole thing. So they did not want me to do that. I was going into biology at Queens.
Oh,
That's where I was
That's where you wanted to go, huh?
That's where they wanted me to go.
Queens biology. Nice.
So anyways, I got into Ryerson.
Oh, I remember.
I remember the seat.
You're in one of my classes, right?
Where you were supposed to sit, but I don't know if you were there. But
I remember. Hey, what are you talking about? I was an A1 student. You know who you're talking to?
So, that was it. I was going to be a fashion designer. Small boutiques, designing on my own. And even in that, I didn't go the straight-laced way in terms of like looking for a company to design for. Right. I wanted to be my own designer and have my own line, my own brand, my own vision, my own house, right?
So how did you make those transitions to like different parts of fashion, like going to the kids wear? And like,
Right.
and what were some of your big hits in terms of when you were doing your designing and your
Right.
fashion? Did you have a store? Did you?
Yeah, so the first time I was in retail was I was dating someone who decided to open up their own store. It was on Queen and Jarvis on the south corner there, and there was two stores. One was called D Train, one was called Tokarifa.
Mm-hmm.
And I would design the women's stuff to go in that Tokarifa. A lot of fun stuff went down in that store that had nothing to do with fashion.
Had nothing to do with
Tokarifa. But, yeah, and then I would just like make pieces, try to sell them to different boutiques.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got into styling and wardrobe styling for music videos and film. My brother was a video director.
So everything kind of like made easy for you.
Yeah, and then
their boyfriend, brother. Oh my.
No, they didn't make it easy. But you know, I started doing films, commercial work, styling, fashion shoots that way. I also was modeling for some time, so knew people there as well. And then from the film and the styling, that you know, and in between, I would work retail.
Right.
Then eventually, I evolved to doing administrative assistant and was with an agency, so then I would do those jobs to sort of supplement my art and buying fabric. And then I saw this store one day. So now we've evolved. I actually did Project Runway Canada.
Oh, wow. So you're an icon. Like, that's like legacy.
Icon.
That's a legacy.
It was like
is that show still around?
No, not Project Runway Canada. Then I decided I wanted to have a store. And I saw it. It was for lease. I wrote a proposal. I was like, I'm going to have a store. And I had this vision and I wrote it out. I borrowed money from my parents and I opened up the store, and it became my incubator and a place where I would design, create, and do whatever I wanted to do with the clothes. I had that for about 5 years. It was a struggle. It was hard. It was on Queen Street West. It was very expensive real estate. It was right storefront, boutique window. I did a day spa downstairs, and that was sort of the first iteration in the city too of having like a boutique where you could get your manicure, pedicure done at the same time. We would do in-store. Now they call it experiential. Right. So I was doing all those kinds of things, those interactive things, the window displays. I used to have butterflies in the window display. I did all kinds of things. Art. I had art shows. I did all my fashion shows in the boutique. So I created my own world basically there, and I had that for about 5 years.
How was that moment when you're like, I want my own store, and then you end up getting your own store? So what was that like? What was that excitement? Kind of like speak on that first day kind of thing.
Yeah, it was more like, oh, I have a vision. I said, what if I could get this store? And what if I, and I wrote this proposal to the landlord because you had to submit what you wanted for the space. And they were taking proposals from people. So it wasn't just a straight.
So that's pretty cool then.
Yeah. And I had worked for a property management company for a while. And so I was able to like alter the contract the way that I wanted it in certain ways and get certain things. I was familiar with that contract at least. And then it was convincing my parents, who just thought I was nuts. And I was just that, that child that like didn't go the straight-laced way, right? So it's like, oh God.
So the support was there then?
It was kind of there. Like they did financially support me, I have to say that. But in their hearts, it's like, when are you going to get a real job? Like I was always asked that question. So even if I was on the front cover of the paper, even if I got an article or write up in a magazine. Even after being on TV, it's still like, they didn't believe in it, but they were just like, okay.
But they're proud of their daughter. Look at Kendra on TV, mommy.
Yes, exactly. It's a push-pull. It was hard, making that monthly nut every month, decorating the store, producing for the store. So I built my workshop underneath, and I would sew and draft and do all that downstairs, and then in the middle of the night, be putting up new designs and selling them. And so I did that for 5 years. And then it was just too much to.
So in that journey, that 5-year little window span, what were some of the signs to say, hey, I'm on the right track? I
was getting a lot of press. I was doing Fashion Week every season, doing a showcase. I would get a cover, I'd get reviewed. I don't even think it was courage. A lot of it wasn't necessarily courage or planned.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like, it would just be like, oh, there's a store. Okay, let me try this. It's, just always, and I think just being a creative person, you just have a vision, find a way to make it work.
Right.
The first time I saw my stuff on a runway, I had met this illustrator, this fashion illustrator, Peter DeFreitas. Love him very much. Older man, did great illustrations, worked for a designer. Somehow we hit it off. He was like a kindred spirit. And Fashion Cares, which used to be a big fashion event in the city, put on by MAC Cosmetics for the AIDS Foundation. He knew someone in there, and he was like, I know this young designer. It was already done. Like, closing for submitting fashion was done. And he somehow got me a spot. And I had like 4 days to design something for the runway. I think I had like $50.
Wow.
And I bought whatever fabric I could at $50. There were some beads that I wanted to add. I just had this vision, bought some beads, actually stole some beads. Just like,
don't say that too loud.
just like you do what you have to do.
Yeah,
it's real life, right?
So I love that.
Put the design together. You don't know, right? I got a ticket somehow to go to the show, and it came out first. And I just burst into tears. It was the first time I saw something I made come down the runway. Then it got shot for the National Ballet of Canada. And, and so all along the ways you get validation for you. The fact that that's what I was built for and that's what I wanted to do, I don't think anything could have stopped me. I was just doing it anyways because I loved it. I wasn't doing it for recognition or for money or...
So as this is your first start or first career before you do your transformation, what can you share with one of the viewers out there or a viewer out there that's looking at what you're doing, and then just that courage to open up the store, and then you had this plan? Like, what can you share with them to say, hey, you can also do this?
So in hindsight, it's more so believing in yourself. Also, there's a bit of naivete. If you don't know what's coming, you don't know all the big bad things that can happen, then you just think, wow, this is a great idea. Like, you don't think about, the monthly lease or your loan fees or all the little bits and the accounting and the taxes and the shipping and the duties and you don't think about all the minutia that is actually the business.
Right.
Like, I used to also teach, so I taught a fashion program, part of a fashion program for the Youth Employment Center here in Toronto.
And how did that evolve? Like, how did you...
Again, it's just people you meet. Yeah, it's another transition.
How did that go?
The world is your oyster if you know, and you just say yes to things. Like, oh, sure. It was actually a fun thing to do, just standing up and talking to the youth and just being like, this is the steps that I did, this is how you can do, what can you do to be innovative? It's just... choose your own adventure in a way. There is actual no roadmap. I would always say to them, the designing part and the creative part is 10, maybe 5% of the business. The rest of it is the minutia, the administration, the research, the business, the accounting, the day-to-day. That's really where you, as a creative, it's hard to get that part of your brain to function as well as your creative part of your brain.
Right.
So I've always struggled with that. I still struggle with that, right? But now it's there's a business part, but you got to get down because the creative part is a muscle that I use all the time. It's a very strong muscle. The other part is not as strong. So you got to balance that, and know that. Or, partner with someone who has that side of their brain functioning and you can focus on the creative.
Right.
Because you are going to need that help. You can't do everything.
So at that time, so you must have been really experienced, and you're still young in the game to be teaching, and then you're doing that with the students. So I guess there was a lot of lived experiences that you could share.
So it was sort of more like, here are the contacts for this. This is what you need to have.
Right.
And these are the things that you will need to have. But these are the things, think out of the box. These are the things that I did. You can think of your own things to do. One time, very early on when I wasn't part of the Fashion Design Council and I wasn't showing, and I didn't have a big budget. So they used to host the morning of Fashion Week. They'd have a brunch at Holt Renfrew. So I had a collection, I couldn't get into Fashion Week. I hired some capoeira dancers and some Brazilian dancers, and then I brought all the models in a van around the corner. I had flyers or some sort of printout of information about my brand that I had people handing out in front of Holt Renfrew, and then across the street, like the drummers would play and the models would walk. I did that for like 30 minutes.
Oh, that's
while
good.
the buyers and the press were going into the Holt Renfrew thing. So just guerrilla marketing. Like now it's experiential. It's called pop-up.
When buyers are going into, and I guess this is the Fashion Week.
Fashion Week, the start of Fashion Week.
So you're saying buyers are going into Holt's, and then you decide to do a show across the street
with like
so
drummers
the buyers can see. And how did that turn out? Like how?
It was good. You got people to like pay attention. Again, it wasn't a very, it wasn't an Instagram direct message world.
An Instagram moment?
No. Those were the times where it's like, Fashion Week was this week and you had to wait till Thursday to see if you got reviewed in the fashion section of the Toronto Star.
Oh, wow.
The week after, right?
Did you get reviewed?
I got reviewed many times.
For being on the street and being a soldier and disruptor? You're an early disruptor.
Early disruptor, yeah. But it was more like think out of the box.
Right.
Make it happen. I figured out how to get sponsorships.
Right. How did you figure that? Like, how did that come?
I had a client who was in PR and public relations, and then she became a friend. And she would teach me how to do the press release at the time, how to lay it out, how to format it, and she would help me with her connections and hook me up with this. And just people you meet. Like I had another friend in the fashion industry. His name was Ian Hilton, a very good soul. He's in Asia right now. He has a beautiful line. And he was just a great human. He came in, he saw my store. He was like, oh, I love this. And he hand wrote notes to each of the important buyers he thought should come to my show.
Oh, wow.
And I put it in with an invitation. And at that time, my invitation was an actual Polaroid. So I made an open sign for my front door, and the Polaroid was just a Polaroid of the front door.
Right.
And then inside the envelope was a note from him saying, you need to check out this girl, come to her store. And so just people helping you. You have angels along the way that'll come and
so you developed angels along the way.
Yeah, and just create good relationships with people as much as you can.
And you said something very interesting that once you said that, it just kind of, it reminded me of something. So you're talking about PR. What I learned from you guys, because we're all working together doing our thing, what I learned from you guys was you and your sister, when you guys started writing PRs and got us into every or any event that was happening based on PR writing that led. And that's what kind of got me now into learning how to write for grants, learning how to, because
there's a formula.
There's a formula. I was looking at the PR letters that you guys wrote, and it was so amazing because we're sitting beside Global TV in an event of launching a phone. Okay,
so one of the takeaways is like, you can't be afraid.
No, you can't be afraid.
Learn. Learn something new all the time. I learned how to use a camera. And I had to learn how to film. I'm behind the camera. You would just send me out on my own.
Jay-Z,
Rihanna. When
I have those tapes. I still have those things.
Learn Photoshop. You taught me how to do Photoshop. That changed
everything, huh?
Everything. I didn't have to wait on a graphic artist. And once I learned, I could cut and paste. We would do a photo shoot, and right away I could cut and paste, and I could send those images to a magazine for them to put into editorial. I didn't have to pay someone else to do it. I could create my own vision.
So how did you do that transition into the children's line?
Had my son in November, 2 months old. I produced a huge fashion show. That one show had like a budget of $300,000. So like that was a big production.
Right.
So I did that. I produced a couple other fashion shows, like
mentors. Connect with her.
My son was hitting preschool. I met another mom, but she was a socialite on her own accord, doing many different things. Very stylish, beautiful woman. And she would show up at school and be like, I bought this piece of fabric. Do you think you can make a bonnet for my baby? And I'd be like, okay. And so we had a couple hours, and then after a couple weeks, we had like maybe 10 pieces. And we were like, is this a lot? Like, what are we doing? What are we going to do with all of this?
Right.
And then she had friends that owned a boutique in Summerhill. We brought the product to them, and they were like, oh, this is great. You can launch in our store in November. And we were like, oh, okay.
Wow.
It wasn't a business.
Wow.
We didn't have a business. So we had to rush, produce quantities for the store. We had to design the window. They gave us the window. We had to open up a bank account, get business cards, get a domain name. Like, we just...
But that's so cool how organically... I mean, the young lady that came to you, I'm sure she had an idea already what she was trying to do. And you were there, but it also worked out well for you in a way that...
Yeah, and it was just like... But it was learning to, like, design on a much smaller scale that I wasn't used to, and I was kind of nervous about that. And, you know, just, again, then I was like, okay, well, let's get this made into patterns. Took it to a pattern maker, and we just sort of... The business just evolved. Now we're in Simon's.
So what is it that you think somebody saw in you, like that lady, what she saw in you to say, hey, I'm just going to approach this woman and ask her for her services without even introducing myself?
It's a good trait and a bad trait. I'm a pleaser. So I say yes quite easily to things.
You do?
Yeah.
Wow. Didn't know that.
Maybe not to you. Don't kill me. Maybe not to you.
It's okay.
Anyways.
Don't worry, nobody says yes to me like so easily.
But, you know, so I was like, yeah, sure, you know, and it's just sort of like, as it came along, I'm pretty easy to approach.
Right.
So the beginning was great. We had a great trajectory. And then after she wanted to get back to her writing.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So I just kept it going. So here we are. And
so, you know, you said some like real gems in there. Like, what type of attitude do you have to have? If I'm a new designer and, you know, somebody can approach me, I guess you have to be approachable. But like, what kind of attitude do you need as a designer to be successful and then come across all these different projects?
It's not for the faint of heart, designing, right? It seems glamorous, but the actual work of it is hard. So you'll always hear the story of the struggling fashion designer and how hard it is. Unless you have family money, unless you have money, money is the key to getting it off the ground, right? So I always told the students to find your tribe, find a team. So like if you're a designer, find a great photographer that's building their portfolio, and find a good makeup artist, find a good model friend. You create your teams.
So do you think networking right now is a possibility for young designers coming up, or is it you think it's overrated and it's better, like you just said, find your tribe?
Yeah, I mean, it's easier now to connect with people, right?
Right.
On Instagram. So now what I realized, and I picked this up from a friend, it's just now I reach out to anybody. It doesn't matter if it's like the editor-in-chief of Elle magazine. I send a message, like either get no answer, or either get a no, or I'll get a response. That's about it.
But you also have a good portfolio that if you reached out to me and say, hey, you want to do something with me, and then I look at your portfolio and the time and the effort that you put in your work, then it's a lot easier. What if you don't have that strong portfolio right away?
Right. Then it's reaching out to people who you are like-minded, who are within, if you're in school, go to the photography department and ask a photographer there if they want to go, ask in the makeup department if someone wants to help you out there, just organically build in your community. There's a lot of, now people do WeWork spaces, this, that. There's so many places to meet people. Just open your mouth and talk.
Wow. So you said something interesting. You were talking about interior design. So now I'm following your career. It's almost like a movie here.
So in the middle of the night, I'm up. My son knows. Sometimes they'll wake up in the morning and the whole house is different because I'm like hammering. I'm like hanging pictures. I'm changing furniture. I'm like, so it's just something that I've always been into. And so now I'm like, yes, I want to do this on a bigger scale. I was able to work on two beautiful properties in Costa Rica last year. And
six.
I'm passionate. I've always been passionate about this, but I was so into doing the fashion design. You know what I mean? And then that just pulls you along. Right. And now I'm in that era of like, I want to do this. I'm going to explore this. I want to create a beauty product. I'm going to explore that.
So what do you do for like keeping yourself active, your brain active, your health active, in order to take on all these challenges and daily things?
I think I've suffered a lot from like anxiety and, that whole imposter syndrome thing. That's a real thing. So it's sort of not listening to that part of your brain, finding those moments where you don't always have to be doing something. You always have to be doing something. If you're not doing something, you're lazy.
You're lazy. I know. That's
right. Like if you're just laying on the couch scrolling or watching a movie, that is a sign of
that's
laziness.
The guilty feeling.
And then you feel guilt.
But then you have to get over that. You have to get over that.
On top of that, I'm momming all the time, and I have a son that plays rep. So that's a whole other job.
Right.
Uber job, basically. I'm Uber teen.
Right.
So
Uber teen.
I do need those moments where it's like, go away.
Right.
I'm gonna nicely flip through my interior designer magazine. I'm gonna have a cup of tea. Like you have to find those moments just to do nothing.
Right.
I'm back to working out.
Right.
Four times a week.
Oh, nice.
And going for walks.
So you're always trying to figure a way how to keep your business going, even though you're you're addressing your son's issues at school. But so your mind is always
redesigning my house, and
right?
Ideas and looking.
It sounds like it,
constantly.
What is your brand like? Give me an idea of your brand, like.
I think for me, it sounds cliche, but it is a lifestyle brand. Like I love to cook, I love to have dinner parties, I love to make everything. Nice. Everything blends, right? If you have an eye for beautiful things, then you want your home to look the same way. You want your food to the same way. It just spills into like what you wear, how you live, how you curate your life.
But what's the lived experience in the fashion industry that you can share, and your longevity? How did you maintain this longevity?
Maintaining the longevity is sort of in the public eye, is more, you've got to put yourself out there. I don't put myself out there a lot. You have to evolve, stay youthful, stay open, stay receiving, stay learning. Never feel like you're done. Keep the mindset of the youth that like, oh, what's this? This is interesting. Let me learn research. Just go down the rabbit hole. But I think if you want to do something, do it.
Right.
We're here once. This is the only show we have. Don't be afraid.
Right.
The majority of us live in fear. I live in fear still too. That's why some things take me longer to, I've wanted to do this beauty product for over 20 years. I'm now pulling the trigger on that. All those are the lived experience in hindsight. Don't be afraid. Be open. Continue learning. Have a hunger for be curious about everything. Learn, research, keep your mind open, right? Toronto's not the only place to be. There's a whole world out there. Like experience, travel, think big. But don't get stuck in the like, I've got to be a multimillionaire with things.
Yes.
You can't take the things with you, but you can take the memories, the experiences, you could pass those things on,
I came to you as a fashion designer because, I wear my own gear, I have my own pants on.
Yes.
Casually Whipped is the name of the brand. I approached you.
Yeah.
And I asked you to create the patterns for me during that pants. So I'm coming to you.
Yeah.
So how do I go about doing that if I'm new in the game?
Okay, you have those pieces, right? You're your best model. Right? Because they're made to fit you.
Definitely.
Shoot yourself, post it up there.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
and
I get that.
Then the more inquiries you get, then you can move forward with.
Is it better to produce on
demand?
On demand?
I think it's a great way to start. It's organic. Like people want to go from here to I want to be in Haute Renfrew. Okay, well you got to work yourself up to Haute Renfrew.
Right.
You don't want to be in Haute Renfrew when you're just learning. Right. You don't want to screw up pants because like. Always start small. Like we want to do these big leaps. Do you know what I mean? Start small. Get the feedback from the customer. Build the clientele. Do you know what I mean? Then you can keep going.
Wow. The gems that are being dropped. And I just asked that question based on me pretending I'm somebody else outside of there, asking that question. But no, on a real, I do have my own little designs and I wear them. So you might see me wear this 3 times on a video. You might see me wear another one 5 times on a video. But inadvertently, I'm just advertising what it is that I'm trying to do, So,
I remember I'd wear my stuff out, and people would, "Where'd you get that?" I was like, "Oh, I just made it. Girls in the bathroom." And then I'm selling stuff. It's like, well, come the next day. I like wash it overnight. Cause I usually made then. I would make something once, and I'd never wear it again. So she showed up at the store the next morning. she wanted to wear it to some film festival event,
Right,
and I
right.
just sold it to her.
Oh, wow.
But
wow.
again,
But that's
be
good
open,
advertising.
receive. Yeah, just you're your best model right now because that's what you're selling. So you're casually whipped.
Casually
as
with blood clot. You know those things.
I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
very
Is there anything
educating.
else you want to share in terms of what you're doing now and what are you up to?
So, Petit Genou, you
Mhm.
can shop online at
Mhm.
petitgenou.com, or
Come on,
you
give me
can go to
something better
Simon's
than that.
department
Like, there has to be
store.
something brewing in your creative mind. That you
My
wanna
creative
share.
mind, I have the skincare product for women
Right.
that's coming out. I'm not going to say
Right,
the
get
name
that.
yet.
So, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And this is one for the fashion world. And if you don't know Kendra Francis, look her up. She is amazing at what she does. For those that are watching, thank you. And we'll see you again. Peace.